board meeting, but there is a need for an executive session. And the executive session pursuant to ARS 38.4 or 431.03A and 1 for discussion or consideration of superintendent's performance standards. So at this moment, I would entertain a motion to move to executive session.
Dr. Santa I move that we move to executive session as outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphreys. Any discussion? Seeing none, then we will vote. All those in favor of moving to executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. We are recessed to executive session.
Test, test, test.
Thank you. We'd like to, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is Tuesday, November 17th. This is a regularly scheduled business meeting for the Gilbert Unified School District Governing Board. I'd like to thank all of you who are here present in the building and those of you who are watching live stream. I'd like to thank you for your adherence to regulation on the door. If you're wearing a mask, we appreciate that. If you don't have one, we would like for you to wear one. We'll begin with a moment of silence, then I will lead us in the pledge, and then we'll do a roll call. I'm ahead of myself. Ms. Humphreys is on her way. Okay, if you would please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're at item 2.04. Ms. Wilson, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Charles Santa Cruz.
Here.
Ms. Laurie Wood. Here. Mr. Reed Carr.
Here?
Ms. Sheila Ujeti. Here. Ms. Jill Humphreys.
Here.
Mr. President, all board members are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. We're at item 3, approval of this evening's agenda, item 3.01. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any discussion? No discussion. We will vote approving this evening's agenda, item 3.01. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 4, Superintendent's Report. Dr. McCord, your report.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to let you know about some things that we have to celebrate here for GPS. First one, Dr. Krista Cox has been named the Arizona Association of School Psychologists Administrator of the Year. Congratulations to Dr. Cox. Next, we have Chris Santos has been named the Distinguished Air Force Junior ROTC Cadet Badge. Chris is a senior and has been in the program at Campo Verde since his freshman year. So congratulations to Chris. And the Arizona Cardinals, as part of the Neighborhood Hero Program, along with presenting sponsor State Farm, has donated $100,000 for the improvement of sod and other items on the football field at Mesquite High School. And that is part of our acceptance of donations tonight. So congratulations to Mesquite High, and thank you to the Arizona Cardinals Hero Program and State Farm. I'd also like to recognize some success from our fall sports to this date. Badminton, Campo Verde, state runners up. Congratulations to Campo Verde. Mesquite High School, Sabrina Ferris was Division II state champion in the singles competition. For cross country, Gilbert High boys Division II state champions. Congratulations to all of them. Terrence Keys came in third, Javi Garcia was sixth, and Jefferson Seas came in 16th. The Campo Verde boys placed third in state at Division II level for cross country. Mitchell Jones was 12th, and Martin Breinholt was 17th. Highland Boys placed 3rd at state in Division I. Elijah Pullman, 5th. Brandon Erickson, 10th. And Crew Resendez was 20th. The Highland Girls were Division I state runner-up. Kayla Case was 3rd. Emma Baugh, 5th. Marina Deer, 12th. Sophie Mann, 14th. And Catherine Sewell was 16th. The Campo Verde girls, 6th in Division II. Clara Jones, she placed 3rd. And GCA, Elia Young placed 5th in the Division IV state finals. For swim and dive, Desert Ridge, Isaiah Smith took 1st place in the 100 fly, making him a 3-time state champion in that event. He also took 4th place in the 200 free. Alex Robertson was the Division I state dive champion. Campo Verde boys and girls teams were both Division II state runner-up. Paige Treptow was 1st in the 50-yard freestyle, 3rd in the 100 freestyle. Sydney Blackhurst was 100-yard breaststroke and 3rd in the 100 free, 4th in the 200 individual medley. Sydney Blackhurst, Sophia Peterson, Paige Treptow, and Megan Lanford placed 2nd place in the 200 freestyle relay. Sydney Blackhurst, and those, well, 3 of those, along with Sarah Dalbeck, placed 2nd in the 400 freestyle relay. Ashen Hesgawa placed 2nd in the 1-meter dive. Caden Taylor, 4th in the 1-meter dive. Jeremy Groke, 1st in the 50-yard freestyle. Christian Astendorf, 1st in the 100-yard freestyle, 2nd place in the 50-yard freestyle. Christian, Jeremy, Brandon, and Hayden Grossarth placed 1st in the 200-yard freestyle. And those 4 placed 1st in the 400-yard freestyle relay. So congratulations to Campo Verde and all their folks. Gilbert High School, congratulations to Rachel Little, the 2020 AIA Division II Swimmer of the Year. She took 1st in the 100 butterfly, 2nd in the 200 medley relay, and 3rd in the 100 backstroke. Maddie Casario was 3rd in both the 200 freestyle and 500 freestyle. And Brady Boosing, Maddie Casero, Rachel Little, and Daniela Martin were 2nd in the 200 medley relay. And GCA, Cole Dunnett, 2nd in state for boys dive. I know that sounded like Sports Center, but we wanted to congratulate. Hopefully we'll have some more coming up as a couple of our other sports wind down. Lastly, next week is Thanksgiving, and it's especially important to be thankful for everything in our life. Since March, as a school district, we've been faced with making some extremely difficult decisions. None have been easy, and none have been taken lightly. I'm thankful for and appreciate all that our support staff, our teachers, our school administrators, district administrators, students, and parents have done for the past 8 months. What you have done and what you will continue to do isn't easy, especially while facing a pandemic. So from all of us up here to all of you, thank you again for everything. Please be careful and safe over the holiday, and we will see you when we get back. Dr. Santa Cruz, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. We have item 5, request to speak to the governing board. We have 2 items, but we have a recorded message. So if that could play at this point.
The board may make an open call to the public during a public meeting, subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions to allow individuals to address the public body on an issue within the jurisdiction of the public body. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual board members may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, may ask the staff to review a matter, or may ask a matter to be put on a future agenda. However, members of the board shall not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during the open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. During the open call, the board requests that speakers refrain from voicing complaints against school personnel or any person connected with the district, as it may impact due process rights. Policy KE, KEB, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Forms required for use of these policies can be obtained from the Gilbert Public Schools website.
Thank you. We'll have two individuals who wish to address the board. I believe it's Amy Johansson and Grace, I think it's Thompson. Please come to the microphone. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I just want to introduce myself first. My name's Amy Johansson. I have 4 children. I've been in this Gilbert Public School community for 22 years. I've had 3 sons graduate from Gilbert High School, and I currently have 1 daughter who's a senior at Gilbert High School. So today I just wanted to come and voice my concerns, even though I'm sure you guys have seen my concerns in my emails. I do appreciate the ones that have responded. First and foremost, I don't have an agenda, but my, is that working? Okay. Is to advocate for our kids to be able to stay in school. And I just wanted to touch on just a couple things. And I've been listening to all your school board meetings, and I'm really pleased with how Gilbert Public Schools is handling the current COVID situation. I think that we actually are doing a very good job. But I do think that there's things that need to be addressed. And one of them is when you guys were talking, you were advocating that your first and foremost priority is our children. And I know at your heart that you really do feel like that is your first concern is our kids. And you also said that our schools are doing a fantastic job, which I think they are. And I do believe that our kids at Gilbert Public Schools are following the mandates and they're wearing their masks. And yes, cases have gone up, but it's not spreading at our schools. It's not spreading between the kids and the teachers. These kids are hanging out outside of school, and I can't control what they do, but I know that my daughter is very adamant. She's a lot better than me because we won't even get into the mask, but she wears her mask. She actually had to stay home for 2 weeks because her back was towards somebody, and she had her mask on, and she, just because of the protocol, she had to go home and stay home for 2 weeks, even though that she had no symptoms. She had to stay home. I just want to say that we need to support one another, and I get that. And I feel like we are free to choose, and the ones that do want to keep their kids home, that they should have that opportunity. But our kids need to be in school. I worked for Gilbert Public Schools for 5 years. I had a son who was on an IEP from kindergarten to senior year. Am I out of time already? Oh my gosh. Okay, really quick. I'll just wrap this up. I support teachers. I love these teachers at Gilbert Public Schools. I couldn't have made it through without them. But we need to start listening to these kids. I work outside of Gilbert Public Schools now in the private sector, but I work with youth on a daily basis. And these youth are struggling. They're in my office. Their anxiety, their depression, they're suicidal. There is other factors going on. We need to support our children. And I know that you guys have that best interest in heart and that they need to be in school. So thank you.
Thank you. Grace Thompson?
My name is Grace Thompson, and I'm a freshman at Campo Verde High School. I'm here to talk about why Gilbert Public Schools should stay open, and I mean 5 days a week, not hybrid or virtual. I'm sorry. Right now, my school is, as I'm sure you know, doing hybrid. Hybrid learning, it does not work. The system you have put in place is ineffective. No one is learning anything. Last year, I was a straight A student. Online orchestra, online weight training, do you not see how ridiculous this is? I know that students at my school are catching COVID, but they aren't dying. They feel sick for a few days and then they come back and they're fine, which, might I remind you, happens to most people on a yearly basis. This is not a reason to ruin education, to create mental health issues in hundreds of children and teenagers, and take away the personal freedom from the people who put you in these positions. Just because there's a new virus going around does not mean that other, much worse problems have gone away. Isolating children still has detrimental effects. I have seen these on myself and my siblings. And I would like to ask a question. Why is it that the football team at my school is still allowed to practice, which has a much greater risk of harm, but I can't go to school? Life is not about being afraid of death. The students of Gilbert Public Schools want to be in school. Teenagers are begging to be back in school. I'm 14 and I'm crying at a school board meeting. I did not even know the board existed a few months ago. To me, this shows that something is seriously wrong. Do you think we don't know when people at our schools get COVID? It's all anyone talks about for weeks. Yet people still come to school every day. Children and their parents are fully aware of the potential risks involved, yet they still come to school. They know that they could catch COVID, but the majority of students are still attending school. This shows that students want to be in school and their parents want them there. Stop taking away their right to choose. You have done enough by providing options for the people who don't want to attend school. Now don't take away the choice from people who do. Stop using fear to control and punish people. You can't punish people for getting sick, even if you feel like you should. That isn't your job. You should be focused on the education of your students, but right now, you are literally taking direct actions to hinder it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Grace. Those were the two items and two requests to speak. We'll now move to item 6, presentation and discussion topics of 601 health benchmark update. Dr. McCord?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Give me 1 second while I connect. Okay. This is the latest benchmark information from Arizona Department of Health Services and Maricopa County. Just looking at the dashboard, this is what the dashboard came up with. I think it was on November 12th, which was last Thursday, last Thursday. And I'll go into more detail here. Reported for the week ending October 25th. We're at 129 out of 100,000. According to the dashboard, that's in red and it's trending up. Criteria 2, percent positivity is 6.9%. That's still in the yellow. Again, it's trending up. And criteria 3 is 3.8%. It's trending up, but it's in the green, and that's considering hospital visits. This is Gilbert Public Schools boundary. This is our boundary map. And I think there's always a question, if you look at it, why is it in red? I think that's a very good question. We have a red, yellow, and green. but I think it's because this has been at least one red for 2 consecutive weeks in one category, so I believe that's why they placed that in red. And here's the specifics. 154.39 per 100,000. Again, that's red, and that's according to that, that's called a substantial risk. Criteria 2% positivity is 7.08%, trending up, and that's moderate risk. And criteria 3 is staying level at 4.0%, which is minimal risk. Next, and this is just a side-by-side comparison of the 2 pieces of data I just gave you. And here is Maricopa County, our numbers over the last 4 weeks, just so you can have a visual of where those numbers are, where they've gone up and down in specific areas. And the same thing for our GPS boundaries. And that's just a quick snapshot of what those numbers are. Just want to let everybody know that we've made an addition to our dashboard, which is updated every Wednesday morning. We've added a column called resolved cases. That's the number of cases that are on the campus that have been resolved. Those do not reflect the current active. Those will, once those are no longer active, will go into the resolved column.
Dr. McCord, what does resolved mean?
Means that they're no longer a risk. What happens is after 10 days, they've tested positive from the times their symptoms through 10 days. If they're cleared by the doctor, then they're allowed to come back, and therefore they're no longer contagious.
Thank you.
Yep. And that's it. I just wanted to...
Could you address the sports part of this? Because I know we've had a lot of emails
Yeah.
and questions from parents about why sports have been canceled or not allowed to start and so on.
Right. I think that's a good point. So the AIA has put together benchmarks of their own that are different than the Maricopa County's, different than Gilbert Public Schools, and they use what's called a SMAC committee, and that's basically an acronym for a health committee. And so they've set their benchmarks in certain areas for certain sports. And if they're in what they consider red, they have decided to postpone sporting events or sporting seasons. And so because we're members of the AIA, which most every single district is in the state of Arizona, because of the competitiveness and because of referees and venues and whatnot, they kind of set the standard for when things will begin and when competition will begin and practices begin. And based on those benchmarks, they have pushed back winter sports. They didn't know for how long. I think their executive committee is meeting this week, but word on the street is that they won't start until the beginning of January. And so that's not a decision made by Gilbert Public Schools. That's a decision made by the AIA. And so, and everybody follows those decisions. So when you see winter sports are canceled, please know that that's coming from AIA, and we are following along. We couldn't be the only sport out there because we'd be the only one playing. And so we adhere to those recommendations. So thank you.
And Dr. McCord, just as additional clarification, we have had some sports who have temporarily, some teams who have temporarily suspended activities. That was a district decision within the guidelines of where AIA recommends, correct?
Correct. AIA, and you can go online and look at their website. They have their COVID protocols in terms of number of people in a sport and how many positive cases you have within that on that team, and what the protocols are related to that. And we've had to cancel some football games at a couple high schools, volleyball, badminton, and so we're being as cautious as possible, trying to work within the confines of what the standards have been set by the AIA.
And I appreciated your comments. I think it's important, whether we're talking sports or whether we're talking the schools, which is really the academics is where our focus is. Our approach, our attempt, and the public can decide whether we've been successful or not, but our attempt is to keep schools open, to keep activities going, but within a parameter. If we get outside of that parameter, let's isolate it for as short as time as possible. And we know that there's pain associated with that. But our goal is to keep it short term so it doesn't become long term.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Anyone else? If not, we'll move to item 7, consent agenda items. All those, well,
I move that we approve.
is there a motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Ujedi. Go
I
ahead.
move that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Ujedi. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Any discussion?
Dr. Santa Cruz, if I can just comment, we do have an IGA on here that just want to thank the city of Mesa. They've been very supportive in making sure that we have resource officers and have done a great job of supporting our district, our schools that lie within Mesa.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Appreciate mentioning that. Anything else? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the consent agenda items as printed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Move to item 8, action items. Items for consideration, discussion, direction, or possible approval. Item 8.01, Dr. McCord, introductory remarks before we get a motion.
This is just the annual approval of the evaluation instrument performance pay measures per my contract.
Thank you, sir. Board members, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the superintendent evaluation instrument and performance pay measures and weights as presented in executive session.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ujedi. Any discussion?
Just,
Ms. Wood?
we will meet in June and review that again. So tonight was just outlining the goals, and then we review it in June.
Right.
That is correct.
This evening, what we're doing is, by approving this motion, is approving the instrument. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then we will vote. Item 8.01, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 8.02, approval of 2021-2022 course description booklet for high schools, junior high schools, and Gilbert Classical Academy. Dr. McCord, introductory remarks before a motion.
Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, it's that time of year. Again, course description book, the favorite time of Dr. Newman, Dr. Kennedy, and the whole crew over there in teaching and learning. This is something that is put together, reviewed on a yearly basis with not just their leadership, but the leadership from the schools at the secondary level. And so it is definitely a labor of love, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Newman for anything further that you may want to add.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, and Dr. McCord. Dr. Renee Kennedy is here, and she can provide a brief update or summary for you and answer any questions you might have.
And thank you for allowing me to be here to share some of the highlights of this year's course description book committee. The first thing I want to mention to you is one thing that we're really excited about is that we will be integrating Global Academy into the high school and junior high course description books. Previously, Global Academy had a separate course description book, and as you know, Global Academy has expanded dramatically this year. We have a lot more kids that are there. We've aligned, most of our courses can be offered on the traditional campuses and at Global with the exception of a few. And so we felt that we could better serve our community and our families by having one course description book that families could visit to be able to see the descriptions for all of those courses. And what we did was on those few courses that are offered solely at Global Academy, we've indicated that those are only offered on that campus to make that distinction. So we're very excited about that, and we hope that that will have families have more clarity and have an easier time figuring out which courses they can take. The next piece is new courses, and we're excited about several new courses that we will be offering. The first one I want to mention is an honors robotics course. It would be the third year of robotics that would be offered. It will be a weighted course, and it will give our kids who are seeking that higher level of rigor, more depth in terms of robotics and the electronics and mechanics and programming that goes along with that. And so we're excited to offer that to them. We're also going to be expanding our offerings for world language to include Mandarin. And you'll notice in the course description book, there's now a Mandarin 1, 2, and 3, and also an ab initio Mandarin that would be offered through the IB program at Gilbert High. Okay. And then along those lines, we're also expanding to be able to offer unified world language for our students with special needs. And that will make it so that our special needs students who typically had a hard time with the level 1 world language classes would be able to have exposure to the world language of their choosing, whatever's offered, and they would have peer mentors in the course that have previous experience with that language. So peer mentors would be students who have previously taken Spanish 1, let's say, and they would be mentors in the unified Spanish course to those students who have special needs. So we're really excited for that, and we have actually created line numbers and descriptions for unified language in each of the languages, so that we can meet the needs of those students. Okay. In addition, we have some courses that we've expanded to additional grade levels. We have an advanced marketing course that has 1 year of prerequisite on it. And in the past, it was only offered to 11th and 12th grade students. And when taking a closer look, we decided to expand that to 10th grade students as well. A student could take that prerequisite course as a 9th grader and then be able to continue in their sophomore year with that advanced marketing course. So we felt that it was appropriate to offer that opportunity to those students. Okay. And then you'll notice a number of name changes in the course description book. And that actually comes from Gilbert High. They were given the distinction of being an IB World School this last spring. And so we have some courses that will now be titled with the IB designation. And those are we're now moved from the pilot section of the course description book, and those now have line numbers in the subject areas that they pertain to. Okay. So those are most of the highlights, and I can answer questions if you have them.
Dr. Kennedy, Dr. Newman, just probably a comment couched within a question somehow, and that is I noticed that we have upgraded or updated some of our course fee issues related to the various and sundry courses we offer, and can you speak to that a little bit? I'm mindful of the increase in costs of many of the products that are out there on the retail market to be purchased. Also, I'm mindful of the fact that our families will be struggling to make ends meet with the fee increase. Are we keeping that in mind as we're going through this?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and most of the fees that have the increases on them are anywhere from $10 a semester to $15 a semester, and it was definitely something that the committee looked at as far as needing to be mindful of the burden that we put on to families. We recognize that that is a large factor. A lot of what we're looking at here is making sure that students have the protective gear that they need, and in the situation that we're in now, more and more of that, it has to be individualized. There are things that kids could previously share that they can't share now, and so some of that cost is coming from that as well. Anything else?
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy.
Dr. Santa Cruz, I did
Yes.
have a question.
Go ahead, Ms.
Could you share a little bit more about the new personal finance course that will be taught in the economics department?
Sure. So we had previously had the personal finance title in our as a business course, and it hasn't been taught in quite a while. And so through the social studies department, there was discussion about creating a personal finance class that would approach personal finance from an economics lens, and kids could take for an economics credit. And so that's where that's coming from. There's also a seal of personal finance at the state level that we now are a part of that students can try to achieve. And so this will help us towards kids being able to reach that goal as well.
Right, thank you. I do want
Go
to
ahead.
point out, sorry, there's a lot of work that goes into this course book. It is amazing the opportunities that we offer, and I really appreciate the effort that's been put in to update and make sure everything's ready for registration, which is right around the corner in January. So thank you very much.
Board members, anything else additionally?
I would just like to comment that I think this is the fourth time I've reviewed a course description book, and I think this was by far the cleanest and easiest to follow the changes. And so thank you for your effort.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anything else? With that, then, we will move to a motion for item 8.02, acceptance of the course description booklets for 2021, 2022 for high schools, junior high schools, and Gilbert Classical Academy. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the course description book.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Any additional discussion?
I
Go ahead.
I would like to tell parents and students to delve into it because there's a lot of information there. It will really give you good information as you consider registration and what you need to do in your junior high and high school years to really come out with a good education. So please read the course description book because there is a lot of information there, and look up some classes that maybe you hadn't thought of taking before.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. No other discussion?
Dr. Santa Cruz,
Go
you
ahead.
already, oh, please.
Go ahead.
You alluded to or questioned the one concern that I would have, and that's the fact that we're raising fees, and I recognize that, as was discussed, there's some reason that costs may be going up. At the same time, my sense is that a large portion of our community is struggling or very concerned about finances at this time because of the impact of the pandemic. What is our waiver process for those who might be struggling or might not be able to afford it? We don't want to exclude them from classes.
We ask them to have conversations, the families, with a school level administrator, and if it's deemed that there is that issue, then we will either waive the fee or reduce it to an amount that they can afford.
The general premise, at least in my experience, has been that young people are not excluded from a course because of their ability to pay or inability to pay. I think that's still appropriate and functioning within our school setting. Is that correct, Mr. McCord? Dr. McCord?
You are 100% correct.
Thank you. Any other commentary, discussion? Seeing none, then we will vote on item 8.02. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 8.03, School Level Annual Financial Report, the AFR. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, tonight we're asking for your approval of the school level annual financial report, the AFR. This is something that is required from the state each year, and we have Jackie Matten in here. Probably you want to give the presentation at this point in time, or just an overview, correct? Okay. Before we get into the...
Thank you, Ms. Mattinen.
Try to bring this up on my laptop. We'll see if we can get connected.
Hold on. I am? Oh, you could yell at me louder. It's okay. Oh, I don't think I am. Am I?
Yeah, I see your screen on there.
There it is. Guess what? You were right.
There we go. Thank you. I'm going to try to get away from the paper. There we go. Dr. McCord, Dr. Santa Cruz, members of the governing board, we are here tonight to present the fiscal year 2020 school level annual financial report. This is a new reporting requirement for fiscal year 2020. This is basically an extension of the district-wide annual financial report. This report is unaudited, and we will be asking that you approve the acceptance of this report as required. So tonight's report will include an overview of the school level annual financial report, the school level AFR teacher salaries in reference to the district-wide annual financial report, and then a school-by-school spend comparison. This funny little picture represents the tabs on the spreadsheet in the school level annual financial report, which is quite a daunting report. It is a very large data dump that we were required to provide. This slide shows the same tabs, just in a more organized, easier to read fashion. The first four tabs were required data to be entered by GPS. So we had the first two, the school listing and accounting data, copied directly from the AFR. The data entry was additional data for teacher salaries. And then the allocations to the school, most of our expenditures are charged out by the school level, so those, of course, were transferred into the report by the school level unit. There are some areas that we'll get into here in a little bit that are district-wide expenditures that we did not allocate out to the schools. This table is AFR from page 9 of the AFR. It is teacher salaries, funds, all funds excluding 575, which is unemployment. Also, this is function 1000 only. This is only teachers, only certified staff teachers in the classroom. It does not include coaches or counselors. The second column is certified substitutes, pretty self-explanatory. The third column is contracted teachers. These would be the phased retirement employees contracted through Smart Schools or ESI, Educational Services Incorporated. And then the last column, contracted substitutes, we do not contract subs, so here. And the reason I highlighted that first column is because on the next slide, we were able to validate the AFR information, the district-wide AFR information, with all of our 39 schools in each one of those categories. For example, the $82.5 million from our district-wide AFR, if we took that first row, that regular education, and added all of the 39 schools, it would total that 82.5. So we were able to validate the school level AFR with our district-wide AFR. Also, this particular grid and the school level AFR is broken out in the same way that our district-wide AFR is, and also comparable to this classroom spending report. And you'll see here, and we'll get into a little bit more detail, and the why behind we chose, behind selecting Gilbert L and Carol Ray Ranch, but you can see in the second row, special education spent almost twice as much in certified teachers at Carol Ray. And that'll come into play here in just a minute. So now we're at school by school spend comparison, and we selected Gilbert Elementary and Carol Ray Ranch Elementary. They are very similar in size. They are, Gilbert L has 478 and Carol Ray is at 489. And please keep in mind that this is student count only. This is not weighted ADM. The following slides will show a per pupil spend, so we focused on the per pupil spend. Again, not weighted ADM, which comes into play because special ed students are at a higher weight. Also, the comparisons will show all funds, excluding 575, which is unemployment. And again, the report is sorted by function. We'll go through each function, talk about the definition of it, and then give an example of the side-by-side comparison. A couple of the program differences between these two schools that we thought was important to point out. Gilbert Elementary is a dual language academy and also a Title I school. Carol Ray Ranch has several special ed programs that Gilbert L does not. And also there's totals on the following slides showing the side-by-side comparisons. There are no totals on the school level reporting annual financial report, so we made that happen here. So the first function is function 1000. These are activities directly related to instruction, interaction between teachers and students, and this would be classroom brick and mortar or virtual instruction. Some examples of these expenditures include teacher salary and benefits, instructional supplies, classroom or virtual, and then teacher and student desks and other materials in the classroom. So this is the school by school comparison. We have Gilbert Elementary and Carol Ray Ranch, as you can see. Some of the variables to consider here, the special education programs at Carol Ray Ranch will increase the cost, increase the spend for salaries and benefits, of course. The purchase service line, the third line, 6,300 at Gilbert Elementary, this was contracted retired employees. So this was the Smart Schools folks at Gilbert Elementary. There weren't any at Carol Ray Ranch last year. Also, the difference in spend has to do with the special ed programs at Carol Ray Ranch and the supplies that were purchased to support those programs. Any questions so far?
So, for example, if you go back to that slide, salaries, I might have, because of the special ed requirements, I might have a slightly smaller classroom, so I might have an additional teacher, even though, you know, I'm really only talking about 11 students different at the two schools.
That is absolutely correct, yes. There are more special education teachers, there are more paraprofessionals at Carol Ray, and the class sizes are smaller in those special ed programs. The next function is 2100 support services. These are activities to assess and improve the students' well-being and to supplement the teaching process. Some examples: attendance and social work, guidance counselors, health services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathology, and psychology services. And here again is the side-by-side comparison. A lot of these services are related to special ed programs, so we would see an increase, of course, at Carol Ray Ranch under the salaries and benefits. The employee benefits is a slightly out of proportion at Gilbert Elementary due to a leave payout. So we've looked at all of these kind of anomalies and the variables that aren't obvious in the report itself. The purchase service line is much higher at Gilbert Elementary. They were contracted a psychologist where the psychologist at Carroll Ray was embedded in the employee salary line. So we had to contract a psychologist at Gilbert L, and we know that those contracted services are a lot more expensive than employees. Any questions here? The next function is 2200 support services. These are activities associated with assisting the instructional staff with content and process of improving instruction. So this would be instructional staff professional development and library services. Wouldn't normally see a huge difference here, not a lot of variables from school to school. The reason that Carroll Ray is higher here, there's more veteran staff at Carroll Ray, and they also used their instructional improvement fund for some school business days that fall under that 6100 as well. Any questions on that one? This function 2300 is general administration, activities related to establishing and administering policy for the operation of the district. This would include cabinet level administration, superintendency, executive directors, their direct administrative assistants, and the governing board. So school by school comparison, we don't charge these out to the schools, so there's nothing to compare here. The state may allocate out these district level expenses out to the schools based on student numbers, based on student enrollment. For their purposes, we chose not to here. Function 2400, school administration, activities related to the overall administrative responsibility for a school. This would include principal and administrative salary and benefits, and supplies directly related to the office of the principal. Again, this is one area that we wouldn't see a lot of variation from school to school. Every school has a principal, every school has an administrative assistant. The salaries and benefits are pretty clear there. There was an increase at Gilbert Elementary due to a leave payout, again, under 6200 benefits. Any questions on that one?
Ms. Madden, when you and I reviewed this and prior, one of the discussions we had was, and I'm going to use the business terms, I know that schools use slightly different terms, but this highlights that in every school we have an element of fixed cost. We will have a principal, regardless of whether the school has 400 students or whether it has 900 students, there will be a principal. And as you can see here, that the cost is relatively fixed. Mm-hmm. You are going to have the employee benefit that are going to be in the same salary ranges on both those. So they're going to be, again, a fixed cost. Mm-hmm. It's not going to vary a whole lot regardless in total amount, regardless of whether you have the economies of scale of a 900 student school or 400.
Correct.
And that's the nature of any business, including education, the business side of education, of a fixed cost. And I think it's important for the community to recognize that.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Whereas teachers, it follows a formula. If you have more students, you're going to keep a proportion of that. So it should be relatively the same on a per student basis if we don't have the effects of special education. If the programming were identical, it'd be more or less the same on a per student, but would vary with those students as a total.
That is correct, yes. And the school comparison tab on the overall school level annual financial report doesn't break it out by program. So all you'll see is object code 6100, to your point about teachers, and special ed programs is a great example. That's why we selected these two schools.
But if I were to pick a school that was vastly different in size, and then because it's the same salary range, now divide it by a larger number or a smaller number, you're going to see a lot more per pupil variation mm-hmm. on these particular lines.
Right, right. This is function 2500, central services. This is where we live. Activities that support other administrative and instructional functions such as Office of Talent Management, Financial Services, Technology Services, Benefits, and Marketing. And again, we do not push these expenses out to the school site, and we chose not to do that on the school level AFR. Again, the state may do that, and that's perfectly fine for their purposes. The supply line 6600, this is where we charge out the per-click charges for the copiers and the printers, and that's what that $1 and $2 per pupil cost is. Any questions on that? Next function is 2600, activities concerned with keeping the physical buildings open, comfortable, and safe for use, and keeping property in good working condition and state of repair. These include custodial services, grounds maintenance, security services, crossing guards, and custodial supplies. School-by-school comparison, Gilbert Elementary and Carroll Ray Ranch. There are, simply put, more crossing guards at Carroll Ray Ranch. So the salary line is a little higher. And also at Carroll Ray, there are more veteran employees in this area. So the salary line, again, is a little higher. Questions on that one? Function 2700, student transportation. Activities concerned with conveying students to and from school as provided by state and federal law. These include bus driver, bus monitor, and mechanic salaries and benefits, field trips, and diesel bus fuel. School-by-school comparison, again, we opted not to allocate these expenses out to the site level for the school level AFR. The state may do this, however, only about a third of GPS students are transported by district transportation. So if they do that, it will be interesting to see how they allocate that out. Remember that this report is all funds, so you'll see the $5 per pupil at Gilbert L versus $13 at Carroll Ray Ranch. Those are field trips. And because this includes all funds, these are school-based funds as well, auxiliary operations and tax credit. Any questions there? And finally, function 3100, food service, activities concerned with providing food to students and staff in a school building and preparing and serving meals. Of course, this would be food service employees, salaries and benefits, and food and supplies. School-by-school comparison. Although they are very similar in size, Gilbert Elementary has more food service workers because they serve considerably more meals as a Title I school. Any questions there? And just some general comments that we came up with as we worked through this report. And I want to give a shout out to my team here, Pat and Ashley. They worked for about 3 weeks putting this report together. So it is quite daunting. Hopefully we'll get some good information from it as the state processes them. But keep in mind that these are unweighted student count versus weighted ADM. This report includes all funds except 575 and all programs for school comparison. So it's really difficult to compare apples to apples on this report. And of course, due to the programmatic differences across the schools, the spend comparison could lead to erroneous conclusions like we saw on some of those slides without the explanation behind it. Any questions?
Board members, before we open for questions, let's have a motion for item 8.03, school level AFR.
Dr. Santa Cruz, I move that we approve or accept the school level AFR.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Open for discussion, questions? Ms. Wood?
Thanks, Dr. Santa Cruz. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for all the time that you guys put into this. I think this will be just another piece of data that we can look through and compare year to year as a school. You know, just look at this individual school. And I like your idea of how you look at it and explain to see, okay, are we being efficient? Well, there was a payout here. That's why this went up. You know, just kind of to give us a data point that we can compare to. And then again, I think though it's not apples to apples in any means, and there's many reasons that we can see differences between schools, it's a good just baseline to just kind of go from school to school and just, again, use as one piece of our puzzle to try and make sure that we're being as efficient and using our funds the best way that we can. So I appreciate the time that you guys put into this, and I think if we look at it with, like you said, with the explanations that you've given, that will be helpful.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Matna, you mentioned that the form of this, obviously you've given us excerpts. The form of this has all 40 schools on it. Where is that available, or when will that be available? I know you've sent it to us, but I'm asking that for the public.
Once you accept it, we will post it on ADE's website and put the link to that website on our webpage, as required.
And I think it's important. I'm sure there's people, members of the public, who are going to want to look at this and see their school, and we hope that your presentation, we know that will generate questions, especially the first time it's published when people don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
We hope that the presentation tonight, where we only compared 2 of those schools, is aimed at helping you understand why there may be differences. But we do anticipate that we'll probably get some questions off of that.
Yes.
Jackie, I would suggest putting some kind of contact information, because sometimes people look at information and make all the assumptions.
Right.
So if we can direct them to someone with the correct answers, that'd be great.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Matton and your team, thank you for,
Oh, I did have, I was waiting for Mrs. Ujetti.
Right.
Did you have anything you wanted to say?
go ahead,
Sorry.
I'll come after you.
I just wanted to express appreciation. This is one time when the coding has really been explained, and I know that is complex when we do that, to code things appropriately for school finance, but thank you for explaining that to us and pointing out that just because we have this data doesn't necessarily mean that we have an understanding of why the data is the way it is. And I hope we can maybe do some things with the legislators to improve the way this is done, because if we're going to put this much work into it, I'd like to see it something that is a little, has a little more clarity to it, and maybe directs people in a little bit better way to understand our school finances. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? My comment is simply thanking you and your team for providing the context for the entire report, essentially utilizing 2 example schools, and knowing that while things are going to be very similar in almost all cases as you look across the district, there will be some variation and some differences based on individual school context. And so I would encourage those who are interested in looking and understanding why those differences exist, that they make contact according to whatever directions you provide as per Dr. McCord's direction, so that they have a better understanding. But it is a complex report that could draw erroneous conclusions, and I concur with that statement. So thank you all for what you've done there.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? With that, then we will vote on item 8.03, the school level AFR. All those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Item 8.04, College Credit Examination Incentive Program. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. We have before you tonight the College Credit Examination Incentive Program. Essentially what this is it's money provided by the state for teachers, school districts, charter schools, for students who obtain a passing score on a qualifying examination for a college credit in mathematics, English language arts, social studies, science. While they're in high school, qualifying exams include advanced placement, AP, Cambridge, international exam, CIE, A and SAS level, and international baccalaureate exams. So each year since 2017-18, they've given us this money to be able to disperse to that, and it's at a specific level. I'll turn it over to Dr. Newman to explain anything further.
Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members, and Dr. McCord. Essentially, our students take advanced placement tests, AP tests, And our teachers are paid for that. Our teachers and students both, when we look at that, we had about 717 students that achieved passing scores on 1,124 exams. And so the district was paid $200.62 for every one of those passing exams. Statute says that 50% of that should go to that teacher, and so the teacher receives $100.31 per qualifying passing score, and that net becomes a $92.14 on their paycheck, which will be this month for each one of those.
And the passing score is 4 or 5 for everybody, correct?
For the most part, yes, they're all 4s and 5s. And those are identified for us each year, and that's provided to us to determine who should be receiving that amount.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Thank you, Dr. Newman. Is there a motion to accept item 8.04?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Any additional discussion?
Just
Go ahead, Ms. Wood.
When will this be paid out? And what is the other half of the money used for?
This will be paid out, I think, in December paycheck, correct?
The hope is that they will receive that on November 24th. Our schools
Gotcha.
have submitted the paperwork for them to receive that before December.
Okay.
And the remaining funds will stay at the schools for professional development and resources specific to advanced placement and now IB as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Along with that, this is similar to results-based funding. And as you know, we put that on an agenda generally this time or in December, and we haven't received funding for that yet. Ms. Mattinen checked on that, and so usually that's here, so we don't know when that'll get paid out, but we try to pay that out before the holiday season as well.
Any additional, Mr. Carr?
So recognizing that the specific teacher receives half this pay, I know that in some of those areas, the success of the AP teacher, if you will, is highly dependent on the teachers that lead up to him. I'll use the calculus as probably the prime example of that. The calculus teacher is really reliant on those math teachers giving them the elsewhere in the department, giving the foundation so that they can teach that level. Are any of those other teachers compensated in any way?
They're not compensated directly in regard to payment, but they would be benefit perhaps from the professional development or the resources for some of those. Statute does allow us to look at perhaps taking that amount and dividing that up between. And there was a principal committee that met along with Marcy Taylor and myself and looked to see if perhaps we should. And the decision was that we would give it to the teacher specifically that was teaching the student that AP class.
But I think you pointed out something that when this came up to begin with, there's a lot of things that go into that. I mean, these kids went to kindergarten and preschool before they got to that point. So I think it's an incentive by the state, and it's great for those teachers who are teaching that, but it does leave out people who are a part of that throughout their whole educational career. So thank you for highlighting that.
Any additional? Seeing no further discussion, then item 8.04, College Credit Examination Incentive Program, is open for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 9, 9.01, items for a future agenda. Once again, if you have nothing this evening, please make contact with Ms. Wilson if you have something in particular that you would like to see on a future agenda. Item 10, committee reports. Item 10.01, Gilbert Education Foundation, Ms. Humphreys.
We had our board meeting last night, so we are preparing for Thursday night, which is our Bolarama fundraiser that will go on, and all of the board members are invited to attend that. We're very appreciative of the sponsors who have participated in that. We also had a very successful Power of One fundraiser, and are just working through a year when it's hard to have some of these community events like our breakfast that we had in the past. But we're plowing forward and doing the best we can, and looking forward to in the spring our scholarship applications will be opening up, and we'll be doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. Item 10.02, City of Mesa Liaison, Ms. Wood.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 10.03, Town of Gilbert Liaison, Mr. Carr, and item 10.04, Finance Audit Committee, Mr. Carr.
I don't have anything from the town of Gilbert. The audit committee did meet earlier today for the first time in some time. Had a great update on the progress of the audit. They are preparing the annual financial reports and so on, and we expect those to be on time for the state deadline, although it sounds like those are also filed with some other bodies, such as the Arizona School Officials Organization. We will be a little bit late to their deadlines, but not to the state deadlines. So things are moving forward, and as they represented themselves well tonight, the finance department is clicking on all cylinders.
Thank you, sir. Item 10.05, Insurance Trust Representative, Ms. Ujetti.
I don't have anything to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Item 10.06, Legislative Representative, and I have nothing to report this evening.
Dr. Santa Cruz,
Yes.
I did just want to, because this is our last meeting before December, I just want to remind everyone that I will not be here for the work study on December 2nd. It will be the first meeting I will miss because I have another meeting with the Arizona School Board Association Board of Directors, which I need to attend that meeting. So enjoy your meeting, and I will contact Ms. Betts and see about participating at another time in the tour that you're going to take of transportation.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. We move to item 11, meeting dates, 11.01. Future meeting dates, Dr. McCord?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, December 1st, we have a board work study / brief board business meeting. On December 8th, we have a board policy committee meeting that starts at 11:30. We are going to have a special board meeting that day as well at 11 a.m. And that's just to approve some financials that need to be done in a timely fashion. So it should be quick and easy, things that you've already seen. And Ms. Betson will update you on anything related to that. And then December 15th, we have the last board business meeting of the calendar year.
Thank you, sir. We're now at item 12, adjournment. Item 12.01, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of discussion. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance. Those of you here in the audience and those who viewed on live stream, have a good night.